Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajgopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the CPG Guys podcast. I'm of course Sri, your co-host, and joining me is Mr. Bond. And when he's not co-hosting this podcast, he serves as partnership acceleration lead at Flywheel, a division of Omnicom that helps enterprise brands improve their SEO and SEM, growing their e-commerce businesses. Please do listen to my older daughter Ria Raj's music at www.riaraj.com. That's R-H-E-A-R-A-J, and follow my younger daughter Laura Raj now as a member of the Geffen Records Universal Music Group Cat's Eye. That's Cat's Eye with a K. While my wife Kavita Raj has her own podcasts, Light, Camera, Convo, and iHeartRadio, and all streaming platforms. In June, all four of us in the family will actually have our own podcast. Mr. Bond, Yankees, Dodgers, are we going to the Home Run Derby and All-Star Game this year?
Yeah, we're definitely going. We're going to Dallas. We're going to go see some baseball. All sorts of things going on here. You're heading over to Shop Talk Europe in a couple weeks, which is very exciting. So you're going to be doing a lot of work there. And then you and I are both going to be over at Cannes for the big Festival of Creativity. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, in June, Laura's new album with Cat's Eye is debuting. So all sorts of great stuff going on in the world for us, right? I mean, so exciting.
Ellen didn't know I was going to be in France. I was going to surprise her on the houseboat party. Now you spoiled that.
Very nice. Very nice.
And Ellen, we're coming home in July when we get to see Juan Soto crank it again and hit 22 in the final round of the Home Run Derby. So do be ready for us. Thank you, Peter. But before we get to our guests, we want to ask you to help spread the word about this community we've created in the CPG Guys. Beyond sharing a podcast with your friends, if you're using Apple Podcasts or Spotify as your preferred listening platform, please do leave us a rating as it helps feed the algorithm that makes us more findable by CPG retail people like you, looking for both education and entertainment. We're happy that CPG Guys is part of an impressive collection of highly rated podcasts, including CPG Guys Fast Forward, hosted by Brian Gildenberg, CPG Scoop with Risa and Jennifer, and the FMCG Guys Over the Pond, the Atlantic Pond in Europe with Daniel, Efrain, and Christine. And I am happy to announce today that very soon we'll have our own podcast for the India market as well. And finally, we're incredibly proud of our allyship with Next Stop, whose mission is to advance the cause of women in business and to promote gender equality in the workplace. Next Up has terrific educational and networking resources available to members. I serve on the board of directors leading the development committee of Next Up, and I urge all of you to take a look, www.nextupisnow.org. Links to our podcast, Sistercast, our landing page on Next Up, social media profiles of my daughters, Ria and Laura, may be found in the digital liner notes of this episode. Let's get going. And it's none other, wait for it, than our favorite topic. What is it, Peter?
Baseball? No.
Second chance. That's a swing and a miss.
Retail media.
Retail media. It's a topic we discuss a lot on the show. We all know the power of retail media audiences to drive businesses at that specific retailer. However, there's been a lot of discussions in the industry lately about the third wave of retail media, where retailer purchase-based audiences are more established as an investment option for national brand budgets. I can go on about this forever. We're here today to hear from three powerhouses, and I'm thrilled that all three are female leaders on top of that, who are representing different facets of retail media, a brand, a DSP, and a retailer. These women are driving the industry forward when it comes to unlocking the full potential of retail audiences in national media, and I'm lucky that I get to make the intros here. First, Cely Moreno, Senior Director for Omnichannel Marketing and Head of Retail Media Partnerships from PepsiCo, whom we've had several guests such as Kate Gunner, who was SVP for Shopper Analytics and Marketing, Chad Matthews, who's now SVP and GM for Global Walmart, previously CCO, Chief Commercial Officer for Pepsi, and Ellen Mulryan, who is Senior Director, Retail Partnerships at the Trade Desk, and of course, our second-time guest, Molly. And did Peter tell you that there's a way to actually earn a CPG Guys Letterman jacket? Did he ever tell you that?
No.
5 appearances.
It's like Saturday Night Live. You know how after 5 episodes, you get that 5-timer smoking jacket? 5 times on the show, you get a CPG Guys varsity jacket. So 2 down, Molly. 2 down.
I'm a ways away from that, but I'm ready.
Molly, I think only one person has earned that so far, Peter, if I'm correct.
Yeah. There are a lot of people that are itching to get to 5. I can think of a couple by name, but yeah.
I know Christy from Albertsons is 4, so you got 1 to go.
Yeah. She is itching for one of those jackets. But yeah, it's coveted. It's highly coveted.
All right, ladies, welcome to the show. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you. Great. Good to be here.
Thank you.
We appreciate you making time to speak with us about your professional experiences and thoughts on the evolution of omnichannel marketing, which is now anchored on technology. I actually call that none other than retail media. Before we get to our questions, can you 3 give me a quick high-level overview of your current professional areas of focus? Maybe Cely will go you first, then Ellen, and then over to you, Molly.
Yeah, great. Thanks again, Sharif, for hosting us today. So in my current role, my team and I focus on implementing our omnichannel strategy. And so this is really about ensuring our seamless shopper strategy from start to finish. And so within the realm of retail media, we're responsible for driving the most effective media plans to help drive incremental sales and maximize ROI for all the investment that we do with retail media across PepsiCo with our enterprise customers.
Awesome. And thank you for having me. So my role at the trade desk is really centered on connecting retailers like Molly at Dollar General to the world's largest advertisers like Cely at PepsiCo and their agencies to build programmatic offsite offerings that allow advertisers to tap into the rich retail data that retailers are bringing into the platform. And that allows them to improve their ability to reach their customers and acquire new ones. And I've spent the last few years really focusing on bringing new retail data into the trade desk. And now I'm shifting my focus more to really engaging with advertisers and agencies so they can realize the possibilities of incorporating retail data into their programmatic buys. And you mentioned retail media. I am talking about retail data all day, every day. Small nuance, but actually quite a large one. And so I'll definitely be chatting about that more today.
I love that distinction on retail media versus retail data. Hi, Molly Hjelm. Thanks so much for having me again. I lead our commercially facing team at DG Media Network and am accountable for a group of really gifted account directors and account executives who are stewarding our relationships with both endemic advertisers like PepsiCo and non-endemic partners as well, really with a focus around our use of data and insights to solve business pain points and connect their brands to rural America.
How awesome. Thank you for the overview to all 3 of you. Molly, I think this episode wouldn't do justice if you can pass on my thank you to Mr. Hartshorn, who was kind enough not to just write me one message, but also remembered my last day at General Mills after I announced it and sent me another one to wish me the best. And so we'll include in the digital lineups of this episode links to your LinkedIn profiles, all 3 companies' corporate websites for listeners to access while we go on with the conversation. So here we go. Question number 1, Cely, is for you. You come with a brand marketing experience in your background across some of my favorite brands at PepsiCo, Sara Lee, and many other brands too. In what ways in your career has that amazing brand experience prepared you for the role you are in as Senior Director of Omni and Head of Retail Partnerships? Said differently, what has it been like to immerse in retail media on that angle and Omni marketing coming from that background? I'm almost jealous of your background.
Oh, that's very sweet. I appreciate that. My experience in brand and customer marketing really has been instrumental in how I think about the consumer journey and the way that we accelerate demand for all of our brands. I think having a consumer first mindset, which we all talk about, but really when you live it, really has given me a deep understanding of how the consumer behaves. So, and truly what's at the center of their choices. And, that can mean anything from why they choose and are loyal to our brands to how and where they choose to find us when they're shopping for their next trip. So transitioning from retail media really was a natural fit for me. It was an opportunity to build on that consumer journey. And it's allowed me to leverage all that expertise from brand building and customer engagement with this landscape, that we're calling retail media or retail data, as Ellen referred to. So I've had the opportunity to apply all that experience and leverage in a way that makes me think about every step within the process of that shopper journey, acquiring, converting, and retaining those most important shoppers to our categories, and in this case, our PepsiCo brands.
Cely, thanks for that great response. I'm now going to turn to the other two ladies. Welcome to the podcast. We're really excited to have you here. Molly, if you take this first and then pass it over to Ellen. From your perspective, what's the value for brand advertisers, including retail audiences in their national media plan, and what benefits can potentially be realized, and what are the trade-offs to achieve things that even they weren't able to necessarily achieve through traditional mechanisms of advertising that may have only touched certain parts of the funnel?
Absolutely. I'll cover off on some of the benefits, and then I'd love for Ellen, from where she sits, to cover off on some of the trade-offs. Our events have been disrupting the industry in a good way, in that our audiences and our measurement bring transparency to advertising. And by that, I mean that our audiences give advertisers the confidence that they're actually reaching a known purchaser. And then in closing the loop and leveraging retail measurement, you can actually see the sales garnered by exposed customers and what they do in the store as a result of your measurement. To me, the real power of retail media that we have enabled, and I think Ellen made a great distinction at the beginning of this on the power of retail data, not just the power of retail media, which I'm totally going to use going forward, is that we can help identify a specific business pain point in the insights that we have as a retailer or nationally, and we can help address that pain point by connecting them with the right customer, can craft the message that that customer needs to hear that will deliver the most value to them. And then on the back end, we can measure those outcomes. And to me, that full circle there is really where the magic happens.
I love that, Molly. And I'll jump in now, and I'm going to answer this question actually by sharing how I ended up at the trade desk. I had previously spent my entire career at a large holdco agency. And in my last role there, I was doing data and tech consulting for brands, which often meant countless, how do I prepare for the cookieless future presentations? Many a days I was doing one of those presentations. And in those presentations, I always talked about a few things that were must-haves to prepare. First-party data, new identifiers like UID2, and then there was always this third bucket around deterministic data sets, which outside of getting data directly from a walled garden was really largely wishful thinking. And then I was also being asked by my large CPG client, how do I get return on ad spend like a retailer does in my campaign? I want to be able to optimize. And my response was, you wish. Just not possible for CPGs. Like, we're not there yet. And then I was invited to a meeting where Trade Desk was actually pitching that CPG client. And I heard my now boss, Ben Sylvan, share what the Trade Desk was doing with retailers, actually bringing retailer data into advertisers' seats for them to activate. The next day, he posted this job on LinkedIn, and here I am today. It was really one of those moments where I had that realization that this was the third bullet point about how brands should prepare for the new future of advertising. And like I said, here at the Trade Desk, we actually bring that retail data into the advertiser's existing and preferred buying experience in the Trade Desk in their actual seat. And so brands are able to directly leverage some of the most future-proof data around, regardless of what happens to cookies. There's always going to be purchase data, and we're going to be able to attach that to an addressable ID to activate. And then they can get that attribution back in real time. Many of the partnerships, including Dollar General that we have with the Trade Desk, advertisers are getting return on ad spend back daily that they can then optimize their campaigns with. And the last thing I'll say, because I think this ties into why it makes so much sense for brands to use this data in their national buys, is this data is also relevant for brands not sold in retail stores. Frankly, every advertiser should be running to access this data because it's inherently based in purchase data. It's still going to be available. And the reality is, if you want to future-proof your national campaign, retail data is a must.
You know what, Ellen? Retail data should have always been a must. And brands that are not focused on actually gathering, harnessing, integrating into all the wonderful tech terms associated with it, and then doing what you said, which is daily campaign management, or rather optimization. You can actually do these things with AI and ML today, but I think for you and me and Peter, that's a whole separate episode in itself, because we're going to run out of time and I have a million things to ask you about retail data. But let me jump to a very important question to a brand expert over here. So obviously, the last 4 years, retail media network budgets from brands exploded. There were people like me in my past role as CCO at General Mills who literally took those dollars from the CMO, and there was no questions asked for the simple reason that that's how business was growing. A lot of stuff was lower funnel activation, and no better way than chasing retail media. A lot of this changed in the last year. The budgets have gotten tighter. A lot of upper funnel activation is to take place again. So, from your perspective, what are some of the challenges that the CPG industry is facing right now in executing retail media audiences? Because you got to get back to upper funnel in national plans. I use those words very carefully, national plans. And so, what needs to be true to scale their use to national plans?
Hey, Shri, I wish I had more time to answer that question, but I'll try to capture some general thoughts on that. I think one of our biggest hurdles still is ensuring that we have accurate data integration and attribution across all the various channels and touch points that are available today. So if you think about it, getting to a unified view of the consumer journey is already very complex. So especially when you think about all of what's available in these touch points. So I think optimizing media spend and truly demonstrating ROI remains a challenge for everyone. From a PepsiCo perspective, we already have incredibly rich first-party data that we've collected through our own tools. And so the need for precision targeting is still there, and we're going to need it, but we're going to need it with scale and with the cost efficiency that it requires to take on all these innovative strategies to leverage retailer data. So, all these challenges at the end of the day come down to collaboration and a commitment to staying ahead of these trends and technologies. We can unlock the full potential of retail audiences and data in a more efficient way, but we've got to do that with the consumer first in mind so that we can all win, including our retailers.
Molly, next question to you. Dollar General is such a fascinating retailer with its incredible scale and its rather differential audience, a unique audience that is different from a lot of the other retailers we've talked to. Would you share a little more about Dollar General's approach when it comes to engaging with shoppers offsite in particular? What's new since you were on the show a couple of months ago? And it sounds like there are some learnings coming out of your partnership with the trade desk about your reach. So I'll hand it over to you to answer.
Absolutely. So you're right. We're a very unique retailer, and I find myself consistently, whether I'm in New York in front of agencies or Chicago, or even in front of national advertisers too, just calling out some of the ways that Dollar General might not be the same as some of the other retailers that they engage. To start, we're the nation's largest retailer by store count, and 80% of those stores are in markets of less than 20,000 people. 75% of Americans live within 5 miles of a Dollar General, and they're in rural areas. We might be, their most convenient and closest retailer available, whereas other retailers may be 20, 30 miles away from them. So it really makes us that preferred and go-to fill-in trip for rural Americans seeking everyday items, whether that's beauty, drug, all the national brands. In the time since we've last spoke, I'm excited to share that Dollar General has entered our 48th state and opened our 20,000th store and growing. We haven't stopped there. We're a few over 20,000 at this point, and we've announced our plans to open hundreds more this year. We also have really leaned in expansion of the needs that we serve for our customers. And one of those primary expansion areas is in expanding the doors of Dollar General that have produce. And so we now have over 5,000 stores that have produce, and we also have planned expansion there. So we as a retailer have been continuing to expand our reach, which then of course translates to the audiences that we can connect with nationally. And today we can connect with well over 90 million customers. When we last spoke, as far as the Dollar General Media Network portfolio, when we last spoke, we were about 6 months into our exploration with the trade desk, where we were putting our audiences into advertisers' seats in the trade desk and making them available to pair with their inventory of choice within that platform. Now, we're about a year out from that launch, and we've got some awesome learnings that prove both the value of our audiences and their effectiveness. And I won't steal Cely and Ellen's thunder. I'll let them speak to the test that we did with Pepsi. But I will share one of our most intriguing findings with the trade desk that really prove the value of the incrementality of our audience, just given the unique spaces in which we occupy in the US. The Trade Desk approached us earlier in the year to share that 50% of DG's audiences on average are not found in the largest demo target in the Trade Desk, so 25 to 54-year-olds. Now, why does this matter? This is a very standard audience to include in a broad reach, kind of spray and pray national reach approach in national campaigns. And that means that if half of our audiences aren't being reached, then half of our audiences aren't getting the benefit of national marketing on the whole. To us, this was extremely validating since Dollar General had our own experience of, the genesis of creating our first party data strategy was really out of this realization that we weren't reaching our customers with our own programmatic media strategy, that we couldn't find them or that it was very expensive to optimize to the rural areas. And so to have this now third-party validation that really on the whole, our rural reach is incremental above and beyond what most brands are reaching through their national campaigns has been really, really enlightening and really put fire behind our opportunity in the market.
Molly, I'm listening to the immense scale you guys have, and I'll say myself, right, if you're not including DG audiences in your national plans, you're simply not reaching the rural customer, especially the example you gave of the 20,000 small towns or villages, as we choose to call them. That is absolutely fascinating. I, again, remember discussions I've had with the merchandising team on this phenomenal growth last few years, the large scale of grocery increasing every day, and congratulations to all of you for getting there. A reminder to our listeners, we're talking to Cely Moreno, Senior Director for Omnichannel Marketing and Head of Retail Media Partnerships at PepsiCo, Ellen Mulryan, Senior Director of Retail Partnerships at the Trade Desk, and Molly Hjelm, Head of Ad Sales at Dollar General Media Network. Ellen, your turn now. Talk to us about self-serve access and how the Trade Desk actually enables that for your partners. And, I've got mixed feelings on this one. I mean, half of me says self-serve is the way to go, especially if you want to manage your optimization down to the day parts, things of that nature. And there's no reason we can't, again, because AI ML allows for this kind of stuff. And then there's the other half of me, which, oh gosh, I'm going to say it and then get butchered for it, is a little bit old school in the sense I trust my agencies and my partners to get it done, to actually preserve and grow my brand equity. So I've got a 50-50 opinion on this one. I'd love to hear yours.
I think that's a very normal reaction to this question. My team and I often joke that a lot of the discussions we're having with both retailers and with advertisers, we call it retail therapy, because we all kind of have to get in the room and get comfortable because it's really stressful and there's lots of hard questions. But to kick it off and answer this question, here at the Trade Desk, I've said this at least 5 times just this week. We strongly believe that retailers can grow both their managed and self-service programmatic offsite offerings, period. We believe that. We've seen it happen. We see it happening right now. And part of our role here at the Trade Desk is to work with retailers to make sure we can bring that to life, because we work with retailers on both sides, both their managed and self-service, and we want both to grow, frankly. The reality, though, is that for most of the world's most sophisticated advertisers, PepsiCo, for example, a shift towards self-service programmatic is already happening. It's happening much like what we've seen in CTV over the past few years, where it's the standard now to be able to activate CTV self-service. It's a must. And retail media, frankly, is not far behind it. And so it's really important that retailers are thinking about this now. There's some retailers who that it's stressful, right? They need a little retail therapy session to get them comfortable with that adjustment. But again, that's what we're here to help support. And so at the Trade Desk, we're really working towards a marketplace where advertisers execute with Amazon. Frankly, that's a section in itself. But every other retailer that matters to a brand should be able to be executed through the Trade Desk. They can then manage frequency across all of those buys. And we've already seen really great success with advertisers actually running multi-retailer campaigns within the Trade Desk. and understanding performance for all of those campaigns to ultimately drive that brand performance. It goes back to the earlier point about how do I make this work for national buys? Of course, this is going to work for e-com buys because we're getting access to that data. You can drive to that retailer. But now if you can bring it all together, have a same attribution methodology across all of them, it works for your national buy because you understand that total sales number.
A couple of things follow up here, Ellen. Number one, I'm curious to know, are there actually brands or users here in the community who don't think retail data is a good idea? And then my decades of existence on planet Earth, I had a different definition of retail therapy. It was often associated with shopping at Neiman Marcus. Are we rewriting the script?
We are. We're rewriting it. I could share the picture. My team last year, we had an offsite and we all bought retail therapist shirts. So I may have to, start selling those because it's a real need in the marketplace right now. But back to your original question, which now I don't recall what it was. You're going to have to answer.
Is the user community here primarily, which is brands, not able to grasp this concept of retail data? Like, this should be so obvious.
It is so obvious. Advertisers are grasping this concept. I would say there's often this stress. The second you say a retailer's name, the brand team goes, oh, that's not me. That's the retail team. That's the e-commerce team. That's the shopper team. And so we're doing a lot of education right now, especially with agencies, frankly, to help educate them on what this looks like. But back to my original point about the fact that managed service can grow, there are still going to be needs from advertisers who don't have hands-on keyboards, who don't have an agency to have managed service. And the retailers also have benefits in their managed service offerings. Think things like Lyft or really custom audiences or connection to onsite that self-service is not going to deliver on today. So that's when we talk about how both can grow, but you have to be smart about it. You have to really think about what the offering is going to look like and how you go to market.
And Ellen, the only reason I asked you that question about isn't it obvious is if a brand doesn't embrace the concept of retail data, they're never going to embrace the concept of self-service all the way through because it's always going to be someone else's problem, like you said, shopper marketing or most likely the customer team, etc. And then to wrap up this, because Peter's anxiously waiting, I know, to ask Cely a question is, I'm just saying, Ellen, the CPG guys will wear that retail therapy shirt any day.
Okay, I will get on that.
We're nothing if not shameless in our desire to get as much swag as possible from the industry. So thank you, Ellen, for that articulate description of why you think advertisers would want to access these self-serve capabilities around audiences. Let's turn to actually the brand advertiser in Cely. Cely, you work at an enterprise brand portfolio at PepsiCo. From your perspective, why would you want to access retail data through a self-serve model the way that the Trade Desk has been creating it?
I thought Ellen did a really great job of teeing that up for me. So I'll just follow her lead. But really, from my perspective, we've talked a ton about what retail data can do for us. It provides valuable insights and opportunities for more targeted and effective strategies. We know that, first, it allows us to better understand consumer behavior and their purchases, which is important, right? Because this allows us to tailor our messaging and perhaps, what we choose to offer and put in front of them. And so this also takes us through that full funnel that we've talked about in the past, from mental availability to physical availability. Second, when you think about it from that perspective, this retail data also allows us to optimize our media spend. We can be much more effective in the channels and the touch points that we're using to target our audiences. And then this helps inevitably minimize waste and be much more efficient with our budget. So from that perspective, I think it's a win-win. Overall, I think if done in the right way, we can leverage retail data in a way that gives us more informed decisions. It can enhance the relevance of our brands and our messaging to our consumers and ultimately drive those stronger outcomes, which we all talk about. It's balancing overall ROI with the right measurement to determine whether retail data is truly valuable and worth the incremental cost that we know is associated with it.
Thank you for that, Cely and Molly, back at you. As an omnichannel retailer, making your audiences available for offsite through a partnership like the Trade Desk could be perceived because you lose a bit of the control over the execution and discussion with your shopper. Am I overthinking this? Do you agree? Am I way off?
You're not way off. I think all change can be daunting, but change is really table stakes in an industry where you're constantly looking to expand inventory sources as customers change where they're spending their time and as advertiser expectations and tech partners shift. So to us, launching a self-serve offering in the first 2 years as a retail media network was not as risky because it was not at the expense of a managed service offering, but rather we were looking at it as an opportunity to scale and enter the consideration set for a group of teams with investments that were otherwise unavailable through a managed service model. So for national and non-endemic teams. And that continues to be the focus of our expansion in this area. Today, I think, Shri, you kind of teed this up really nicely in the 50-50 mentality that you had. But today, we have a robust managed service business, which is really designed for shopper marketing teams and those really incentivized on the growth of their business at us, specifically at Dollar General, to help them ensure sales, visits, units incrementality at Dollar General, and to be best positioned to share that success back with the merchandising teams, to be able to show, as a result of these marketing efforts, how they're collectively contributing to growth in the category. And then we're complementing that with a self-serve offering that provides incremental reach in rural for those brand teams who care most about reach that performs for them. And in the midst of that, there's an important point of difference just in the way that our data set comes to life and the fact that we now know 50% of our audiences are not included in the largest demo target in the trade desk, in that it helps those shopper budgets at DG not have to work so hard in order to have that full funnel experience for our unique rural customer. So we're learning as we go, and I would say it's all about setting the right guardrails in place to protect our customer, to allow flexibility for advertisers, and to design media toward the right KPIs. And I think you've got a great group on this call because it's been all about staying open to feedback from our partners, learning and educating, I would say, mutually across our DSP partner, our advertiser partners like Cely, and our position as a retailer. So that's been key to helping us move quickly towards where the demand was, where the market is going, while at the same time mitigating risk.
And I would just love to jump in really quick. I want to applaud Molly and her team, the team at Dollar General Media Network, for what they've accomplished. They are one of the most forward-looking retailers that we work with, and they have such a unique data asset. We've talked about that countless times here today, and they're really one of the gold standards for when I talk to other retailers about who's doing it right. I get asked that question a lot. Who's doing it right? Dollar General is one of the retailers doing it right, and we're really excited about that and excited to continue to partner with them to evolve the marketplace.
Yeah, I would echo that, Ellen. When I think about Dollar General, obviously in-store traffic is by far the largest driver of their sales. So the ability to leverage all of the insights coming from that to build meaningful audiences for offsite advertising is incredibly powerful, and coupled with what the uniqueness of their audience brings really makes them an essential part of any national advertising plan. So Cely, I want to turn to you about a case study in particular that I'm aware of called Better with Pepsi. What advice would you give to a brand that is looking to do something innovative like that? And I'll ask you to kind of share with our audience what that's all about. And how do they go about bridging the planning between shopper and national to kind of accomplish that? And obviously you worked with the trade desk to make this a little bit easier for Pepsi to be able to accomplish this. Open up the hood and show us the Hemi under the engine, right, of how this kind of all came together. I'm really fascinated by this story.
All right, I'll back up and talk a little bit more about our campaign for those of you that aren't familiar with Better with Pepsi. So this was a campaign that came from an insight that, of course, consumers prefer Pepsi with their pizza. Who doesn't? This campaign was just an example of leveraging that insight and bringing it from what was an equity campaign into the retail space to help drive baskets and connection to shoppers as they were building their meal solutions for their family. And so within this partnership, we talked about this. We had the trade desk, Dollar General, And our customer marketing team worked together to define what the shopper problem to solve was and align on the metrics. Ultimately, it was about reminding consumers who shop at Dollar General about the salience of pizza and Pepsi and converting them to purchase that Pepsi and pizza in store. So, I think Molly touched on this earlier, but in order for this to work, we really all had to trust the process. There isn't a blueprint for something like this. We were all starting this from scratch. And so we had to align on what our goals were, what was within the guardrails, and then, of course, our budget realities. We needed to make sure that we stayed true to the equity messaging for the upper funnel tactics, which was important, but we also had to drive conversion that we expect in any retail media campaign that we run with our partners. And so the true breakthrough was really about being able to work with the trade desk and buy through our own PepsiCo media seat, guaranteeing our national PepsiCo rates, which, as you can imagine, are incredibly efficient with our buying power. And so across national and shopper better with Pepsi campaigns, this was really the way that we started down the self-service path. We integrated with the trade desk, which Dollar General already is connected to them. They share their audiences, they share their metrics, which is amazing. So we were able to move these consumers through the funnel using our national and shopper campaigns. And results ultimately showed that consumers exposed to both campaigns actually have a higher conversion. You'll see this in the business case with more detail. But they have higher conversion when they're exposed to not just one, but both of those campaigns. And when they see that full funnel, you can tell that measurement is also helping drive performance and cost efficiency because you're not wasting impressions. You can manage that frequency. And for all of us, that's a win. So we plan on adopting this more with Dollar General, but also with other retailers that are willing to partner with us. We really think this is a breakthrough way of leveraging that data as well as our first party data in a way that makes sense for brands and shopper.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Cely. There's some publicly available material on this about this campaign on the Trade Desk site, and we'll include a link to it in the digital liner notes of this episode.
And now we're going to go to a segment called Fast Forward, where we'll just take 30 seconds, each of you, and let's look into the future of what's brewing in this space. So what are some of the industry trends you're watching in terms of how the omnichannel consumer engagement is shaping up, especially with retail media? And Cely, I'll ask you first.
All right, I have two. The first one is personalization at scale. So there's a growing emphasis for us to deliver personalized experiences across all these touch points across the consumer journey. So I do think that we need to continue to leverage our consumer data to truly personalize this messaging, our content, recommendations in real time. So I do believe that's something that's going to continue to grow and be of importance within retail media. Second one, continued emphasis on measurement and attribution. We're still not quite there, and it continues to get more complex. So there's you talked about tighter budget street. There's a heightened focus on measuring the impact of retail media campaigns and attributing those conversions accurately across those channels. So I think if we can continue to advance analytics and demonstrate ROI effectively, this will be something that will change the game in the future.
Ellen, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll add, I expect to see an acceleration of retail data used in CTV. I think we've been talking about that for a while, but we're really seeing an increased focus on this as advertisers really recognize the value of layering new data on to reach exactly who they need to. No more 25 to 54. We want to reach exactly who we need to, especially in such premium environments like the TV shows we all know and love. At the Trade Desk, we recently just announced a partnership between Roku and the Trade Desk. We're also the only programmatic DSP with access to the Olympics in Paris through NBCU. All really great opportunities to ensure that those really premium environments are working as hard as possible. And I just encourage advertisers to just reimagine what they've been doing in the past, because the reality is that everything has changed in digital media with the introduction of retail data.
Molly, did you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I would just say, I love hearing how Cely talks about how our case study came about for Pepsi, in that she makes it sound fluid, seamless, easy to do the level of lift and coordination that's needed nationally through to shopper. And I would say from our own experience of working with them, it was, but I think that's a testament to the strong communication that they have internally and identifying the right campaign and, to her point, selecting the right partners. As I look ahead in this industry, I'm interested to see the continued organizational shifts that happen. I've seen recent research, and this has been my own experience too, that to create a full funnel campaign requires the buy-in of usually on average 5 different entities within an org, whether that's shopper marketers, e-com teams, national teams, media centers of excellence, agency teams. So just kind of continuing to see that consolidation and where those decisions end up being oriented continues to be fascinating to me.
And here we go. What else would we expect when we had 3 amazing leaders talk to us about the retail media world, our favorite topics? So let me remind the audience of our URLs, cpgguys.com, where you can find all of our content. And if you think you or your company has some thought leadership to contribute, please drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, that's contact@cpgguys.com. And maybe you can join us on the podcast as well. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com on the navigation bar at the top right, because you help shape the show. When you rate us and you actually tell us how we're doing with who we bring on the show and the topics we have. Thank you for the 30,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. The show doesn't exist without y'all. Again, I'll say it. Thank you to every single one of you for the clicks, likes, comments, the DMs, and for help shaping the show. Cely, Ellen, Molly, sincerely, you made time today on a weekday to talk to us and give us your viewpoint on the ever-shaping space of retail media networks. I can't thank you enough, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bond, the section I've been waiting for. So let's do it, man. What did we learn today?
Yeah, I'm going to try and highlight this and make it brief but potent. The message I heard coming at the beginning was very clear to me that retail data allows for the identification of pain points for brand advertisers to be able to isolate and create specific audiences and personalize the engagement to address those issues. I think that's the promise, right? And that deterministic data sets are now at a reality that can actually move us beyond just simply return on advertising spend, which is no indication of true performance marketing because it doesn't take into account sales that would have already occurred if not for the advertising exposure. And it gives us a path to successful performance marketing measurement in the post 3P cookie world. I think that's very important. Also, this data set is incredibly powerful for non-endemic advertisers. Advertisers aren't necessarily selling through a platform, but as we mentioned, can approach an audience that's highly valuable to them and influence their behavior. Balancing precision targeting with the ability to reach a scaled audience is still a major challenge for brands. Dollar General is attracting a highly rural audience. It's even moving into everyday staples like produce, and 50% of its audience is not found in the largest trade desk age demo, which means that it's highly incremental to any advertiser that's looking to put together a really powerful national campaign. The trade desk wants to create a marketplace where advertisers can seamlessly shift to self-service to win wherever they need to engage consumers at the retail media platforms that matter most to that particular advertiser. Access to retail data allows for better understanding of consumer behavior, and the ability to refine messaging is what Cely really shared with us. And retail data allows for media optimization to minimize waste of those advertising dollars. Cely shared with us the mechanics of Better with Pepsi, the Pepsi and pizza insight that led to a national campaign to drive conversion at Dollar General, and how the 3 entities here brought this all together to do that successfully. But in doing so, still recognizing that brands need to stay true to the equity messaging as they are going about doing all of this. So all of that can be taken into account. And as we look towards the future, obviously personalization at scale is a promise that is quickly being realized. But in doing so, understanding that the dollars that are going to shift to these new mechanisms will only happen with an extreme focus on measurement and attribution so that they can feel comfortable that those dollars are being spent wisely. That's my summary, Sri.
Well done, Peter. Thank you to all 3 of you again. That's a wrap of this episode. For our audience, see you soon on another episode of, wait for it, the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.